From the 11 Alive studios, this is The Georgia Vote with Faith Jesse and Zach Merchant.
Well, good Sunday morning, everyone. It is another big day in Georgia and a big win for Governor Brian Kemp. This week, Georgia lawmakers passed a bill, SB 68, referred to by many as tort reform, which is essentially a bill to change civil jury awards.
That's right. So this is Governor Kemp's signature legislation. It would limit jury awards and lawsuits. Now, supporters say that it will limit large financial awards and stop frivolous litigation. Opponents say it hurts victims of crimes like sex trafficking by preventing legitimate lawsuits. Well, the fate of the bill, it rested in the House, where it passed by the bare minimum on Thursday. But some Republicans, they voted against it. 3 Democrats voted for it. And after it passed the House, I asked 11 Alive political reporter Doug Richards how it happened.
I would attribute it to the persuasive powers of the governor, the fact that you had the entire Republican House leadership putting their credibility behind it, putting everything that they had behind it. And although Governor Kemp is not running for re-election in 2 years, these folks will all be on the ballot, and Kemp's operation was watching them. Self-preservation, I think, had a lot to do with it.
Doug, why were his opponents at this, unable to stop this, at least so far?
Well, it certainly wasn't for lack of trying. There were very poignant moments here in the Capitol where victims of sex trafficking had lobbied against the bill, and then Republicans rewrote the bill with a carve-out for victims of sex trafficking, excluding other victims who are under similar circumstances where lawsuits would be filed. It was noted by many Democrats that there was some incongruity to that particular exception that was made for these victims, but not these victims. There were only 3 Democrats who voted in favor of the bill. One was a guy from Savannah named Carl Gilliard, a Democrat who easily won re-election last year. One was Michelle Au. It's a bit of a swing district that she's in Johns Creek. And then the third one is a Democrat named Mac Jackson, who is from Sandersville, which is sort of in between Savannah and Augusta and Macon. And he won re-election by only 50 votes. He's basically in a Republican district. Republicans have tried to flip him to become a Republican, and he continues to caucus with the Democrats, but he's been very independent-minded. You know, it's an unruly place, the legislature sometimes, and it's hard to herd all the cats into the places where the leadership wants.
We thank Doug for joining us. The Senate passed this bill on Friday with no changes to what the House approved on Thursday. Well, thousands of probationary workers across the country still waiting for guidance about potential reinstatement, including many workers at the CDC based right here in Atlanta. A federal judge set a deadline of last Monday for several agencies, including the CDC, to temporarily reinstate those workers. But that deadline, it came and went, and those workers were left with no guidance. We spoke with 3 of those workers this week.
On February 15th, Sarah Boehm received a letter.
I was being terminated because I was underperforming and my skills didn't match the agency's needs at this time.
Her CDC colleagues Stephanie Tran and Abby Ty also notified.
I feel like no one has my back. I feel like I need to scream into the void for someone to hear my voice, you know.
They joined thousands of probationary federal workers across the country, hoping a judge's order to temporarily reinstate them would give them more time.
Have they given you all any guidance on how to transition?
No, there's been radio silence. Nobody is telling us anything.
What has been the hardest thing for you? I know you told me that you have a relatively new addition to your family.
Yeah, I do. I have a baby, and I definitely feel uncertain about our future for him. And this massive goal I had to serve the American people through public health and through CDC has been ripped away.
Their work was specialized.
I started my work on smallpox and mpox. A lot of my work went towards vaccine safety. Yeah, so before I was terminated, I worked on the Public Health Emergency Preparedness Program.
What is going to happen now with all of these firings from your point of view?
Huge knowledge gaps. I mean, I was terminated with no opportunity to train anybody. And my skills are pretty niche. So those needs are just not getting met anymore.
While they continue to wait on answers, some needs can't wait.
And for the last 3 months, I'm a breast cancer survivor, and I have to get like a shot to prevent the cancer from coming back.
So I'm insulin dependent, so, you know, trying to figure out when my health insurance is going.
What's your message for those in charge?
Bring back reason. Let's bring the focus back to service, bring the focus back to serving the public.
If you want to make the government more efficient, you should speak to the people who work in the government, because we know where the gaps are. We know where things can be more efficient. We know where the waste, fraud, and abuse is, but we weren't asked.
And I've stayed in touch with Sarah, who says as of Friday at 2 p.m., some of the CDC employees, they've received notifications that they were placed on administrative leave. She says she has not gotten that email, nor have any of them been reinstated. We did reach out to the CDC for comment, and we are waiting to hear back.
Well, today marks the end of Agriculture Week, a celebration of one of Georgia's most crucial industries. Earlier this week, we sat down with Tyler Harper, the Republican State Agriculture Commissioner, to discuss some of the biggest issues facing our state's farmers and the people who buy their products. Egg prices have been front of mind for a lot of Americans and a lot of Georgians in recent months. They have been going up in recent months. Can Georgians expect egg prices to start falling anytime soon now?
So I think on egg prices, this is a perfect example of where the consumer, I think, gets a realization that things that happen at the farm level have a true impact on the supply chain. And so what we've dealt with high-path avian influenza across the country has had a direct impact on the food supply chain and on that supply-demand curve, as well as what's happening at the grocery store and the prices that consumers are seeing. Our team has done a really good job. We're the #1 poultry state in the country, yet we have some of the least significant impacts. And look, we're not resting on that. Our guard is not let down. Matter of fact, we're stepping up our game. You know, we had the first commercial detection in a flock a couple of weeks ago here in Georgia. And we acted quickly on that to address that, to ensure that we were able to contain and eradicate HPAI from our state, which we have, and now we're HPAI free again.
No bird flu in Georgia.
No bird flu in Georgia as I speak right now.
So to a consumer who is shopping every week and they're worried about these prices, it sounds like your message to them would be, you expect those prices to come back down.
Yep. So, you know, to sum it up quickly, you know, we've already seen over the last 2 weeks or so, egg prices have dropped already. We do expect that to normalize and continue over the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months.
Let's talk about another thing that impacts Georgia farmers, and that's the weather.
Yep.
And we have unfortunately seen a series of devastating storms impact Georgia's farmers. Hurricane Helene is the most recent, but also Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Michael, or others that have had serious impacts on farmers across our state. To a farmer who might be watching this and thinking, I need some help, what would your message to them be?
The thing about agriculture is you can do everything right. You can plant on time, you can work to harvest on time, feed on time, but you could still lose everything overnight due to one of these devastating events. The most recent being Hurricane Helene, as you mentioned. You know, a lot of our farmers and farm families are still reeling from that. They're still hurting, and there's a lot to be done to help them get back on their feet and ensure that they're able to continue to be successful. We're committed to that. You know, I think on the state level, we've shown we're committed to that. This past fall, with the help of the governor, the speaker, the lieutenant governor, you know, we were able to convene and put together $100 million to put towards forestry and agriculture through low-interest loans and cleanup grant programs for forestry specifically, and the low-interest loans for agriculture. Working with the legislature, we were able to add another $185 million to that in the amended budget. So a total of a $285 million package that Georgia has put together to help agriculture and the forestry communities get back on their feet.
Harper said he is also working with the U.S. Department of Agriculture to coordinate the rollout of some federal relief funds. To see more of our conversation, including how he thinks tariffs might impact Georgia farmers, look for our full interview streaming right now on 11 Alive Plus. Well, much more ahead. We sit down with a state Democratic lawmaker and ask how her party navigates the legislature when it is out of power.
And later, our voice of the voter is a former mayor who is starting up conversations surrounding women. And in a time of division, she's choosing to listen to those who don't always agree.
In Georgia, the GOP controls the policymaking agenda by holding the governor's mansion and both chambers of the legislature. This week, we sit down with State Representative Syra Draper, a Democrat, to hear how the minority party navigates that legislative session. How has the session been for you so far?
The session has been fine. It is frustrating. When you are a part of the minority party, you don't get to set the agenda. So the issues that I think are of most concern for Georgians aren't necessarily what's reflected in the agenda that we are working on in the session.
What is the path to greater power in the state for the Democrats right now?
I think we have to lead, full stop, and we have to lead with conviction. So what are our values? What do we offer? How do we differentiate ourselves from the party that is in charge right now? Those are the propositions that we have to be bringing to the voters. And I think it's very important to make the connections for folks that what is happening in Washington is not divorced from what is happening in Georgia. So I'll give you an example. I have a lot of folks in my district who work in federal government and who specifically work at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Many of those people were affected by the DOGE federal level layoffs or risk of layoff. And it has caused chaos and panic within this community, within my community.
In a recent email to your supporters, you said you were not happy with the state of the House bill that proponents and advocates and supporters, including Speaker John Burns, have said would advance school safety. What are your concerns about that bill?
The school safety bill, which Republican leadership has called a comprehensive school safety bill, was passed because of the Appalachia school shooting, where 2 students died and 2 teachers died. How many children have to die in Georgia for us to pass a reasonable gun safety law? That is my question. In that comprehensive school safety bill that we did pass, it dealt with other issues. It dealt with mental health. It dealt with, registering students that made threats, and that's fine, right? I'm not saying there's only one approach to school safety, but for them not to even include the word gun in that bill, they are putting their heads in the sand.
You want to see some restrictions on the ability to access firearms in some circumstances.
I think there is a lot of room for common sense regulations on guns, right? One thing that Democrats have been pushing for the last several years is pediatric safe storage. So it's a very simple proposition. If you own a firearm and you live in a house with a child, you have to store that firearm securely, right? This is not radical. It is not an assault on Second Amendment rights. It's just a reflection of the reality that it seems like every week there is a child that finds a gun and shoots themselves or a playmate or an adult. This is something that we could easily prevent if we actually had the strength to stand up to the gun lobby and say this is what needs to happen because children's lives are at stake.
To see more of that conversation, including why Representative Draper sees the 2026 governor's race as a pivotal opportunity for her party, look for a full interview streaming right now on 11 Alive Plus. You can download it on your TV and watch for free.
All right, time now for our political roundtable. Today we have Republican strategist Deanna Harris. Right now, she serves as managing partner at Midnight Rider Consulting. She's also a member of the Conservative Policy Leadership Institute Alumni Board. Welcome back, Deanna. And making his first appearance on the panel, Devin Barrington Ward, a progressive community organizer, political activist, and managing director of the Black Futures Group. We're so excited to have you guys both. And we want to start off with one of Governor Kemp's top priorities this session.
Let's start with tort reform. Governor Kemp, from the beginning of the session, staked this out as his marquee legislative priority. It has now passed the House. It has now passed the Senate. Deanna, you're a Republican. How are you feeling about this? Is this a big win for your party?
A very big win, but it has been a fight, since the beginning of session. Several members, of course, we had did a little bit better in the Senate side, but several of the House members didn't necessarily side with the governor's issue, and so, but we're looking forward to seeing him sign the bill. We're also waiting on the companion bill to pass as well.
Devin, from a progressive's perspective here, where do you stand? What are your thoughts as you see this bill on its way to the governor's desk?
Well, it's another example of Governor Kemp prioritizing corporate profits and the insurance industry over working class people. No working class person that I've spoken to, and I've been a candidate for office, so I speak to people about these issues before in the past, has talked about this being the way to reduce insurance costs. And when we look at other states like Texas and Florida, there's no evidence from those states that that type of tort reform, which the Georgia bill is based loosely on, has provided any real savings for working class people, business owners, and things of that nature, as the governor has professed. And so we would like to see more evidence-based interventions that are going to actually provide resources for working class people as it pertains to reducing the cost of insurance in the state of Georgia.
Deanna, do you want to respond really quick, and then we want to get to the next topic?
Well, I think versus insurance costs, Governor Kemp's top priority was reducing the price when it comes to legal issues with the plaintiffs and defendants. A lot of businesses have seen things go crazy based on that issue, and that's been one of his top priorities. And I think that, from big business to small business, it affects us all. And of course, big business and large corporations bring jobs to Georgia, which are very important to the working class citizens of Georgia.
Okay. Let's pause right there. I want to talk about these federal cuts that we've been seeing. Devin, I want to address this to you. Some Democrats have expressed frustration with the Democratic Party, saying you guys aren't doing enough. Republicans are very happy because Trump came in and he's doing a whole lot. Is there anything that can be done here with these federal cuts? We'll go to Devin and then Deanna.
The independent voter, I think, right now is very frustrated, particularly those who may have swung to Trump in this last election, because they didn't ask for the Department of Education to be eliminated and for jobs to be cut there. They didn't ask for the CDC to be cut there. They asked for grocery prices to be cut, and they have not gone down. And so there is a confusion with, I think Trump is prioritizing his base, but I think he's done nothing to actually speak to the independent voters who did put him in office.
Let me pause you right there, Deanna. We have 30 seconds. We want you to respond.
Well, sometimes change takes a little bit of time, and President Trump is doing exactly what his Republican voter base wants. We want smaller government, and that's what we're doing, reducing the size of government. And that comes with, sometimes cutting jobs that we have a frivolous amount of jobs in government, and sometimes it's not necessary. Of course, we probably need to scale it back and look, a little deeper into which ones we do cut. But I think a smaller government is always better because that helps the private sector grow more.
Thank you all so much. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this break.
This week at a town hall, many of Congresswoman Williams' supporters expressed their frustration with the Trump administration.
And some even questioning what they see as a lack of effort by Democrats to fight against swift changes in the country. Others questioning the power of the president and asking Williams what's being done. We talked with her one-on-one. What is the Democratic response? I know that several of your constituents asked for specifics. How can Democrats get behind, join together, and change when the reality is you all do not have a majority in the House or Senate right now?
We don't have the majority in the House and Senate, but we have the majority of people who want the government to work for them. We do not have a majority of the people in this country who want our federal government destroyed. I have not heard anyone. Medicaid, it impacts people that are Democrats, Republicans, independents, unaffiliated. So that is not what the people in this country want. And those are the voices that we're bringing to the forefront, making sure people understand that when we're talking about budget cuts, the people that we represent in this country, they're more than just a line item in the budget. The federal government is not a business.
Coming up next, our voice of the voter takes us to DeKalb County, where one former mayor is striking a chord with women and the time of division. This week, our Voice of the Voter takes us to DeKalb County and the small city of Pine Lake. We speak with former mayor and musician Melanie Hammett, who uses her musical talents to create a safe space of conversation and engage with those who aren't always in harmony.
I don't have all the answers to the troubles of the day. Well, I'm Melanie Hammett, and we are in my house in Pine Lake, Georgia, which is the smallest city in DeKalb, less than 1,000 people. When I see a little baby. I am also the former mayor of this little city because I love this city so much. I read an article, military.com, and the headline said, Army, Navy, remove all web pages referring to women in military service. So I called up 5 pals of mine, and we put together a series every single Friday night. So, Faith, you come in the room, and you're not tuned into bringing your women with you. You're just going to come see a performance. But then you get this card that says, who do you look to in history for guidance and inspiration? You're like, well, wait a minute, now I'm activated.
Can you start off by just giving me a vibe check, how you feel right now with the state of politics in the U.S. and here in Georgia?
A vibe check. I feel brokenhearted. I feel brokenhearted because there are certain tenets of how we treat each other and how we amplify that through government, and all of those accords have been fractured.
What's your biggest concern right now?
My biggest concern? It's that I will fall for some of this. I'll fall for it. What I mean by that is I'll become too afraid. I'll become too brittle. I'll become too exhausted to continue to push out, work with people to put on something like this.
What are you most optimistic about?
So there was the guy who actually sold me this house. Wow, he and I, no, not, he was all the things that are antithetical to all the things that I am, and I couldn't stand him. Then one day, I ran my car into a ditch, and guess who had the truck that could pull me out of the ditch? He did. And I thought, okay, you can dislike your neighbor, but you have to care about him.
Did he pull you out of the ditch?
He pulled me out of the ditch, of course he did. Yes, he was, because he was many things, but he was never going to be a guy who would drive past someone in the ditch and not pull him out.
And you can catch one of these events next Friday at the Boathouse in Pine Lake.
What a story. Thank you all so much for watching us today.
We hope to see you back here next Sunday at 11 for another edition of the Georgia Vote.